So, wealth gap brought about populism. What is populism? Of course, different scholars have different definitions. One definition, or rather one form, is the idea that lots of Americans, ordinary Americans, believe all the elites are bad. You who have received higher education, who have political resources, fiscal resources, power, knowledge, and connections, you are all bad. You spend all day thinking about how to take advantage of us and scheme against us. And this perception, once adopted by more people, becomes a kind of widespread distrust in the form of conspiracy theories, believing, oh, this is just a conspiracy by this elites. And these elites do no good but thinking about how to take advantage of us all day. And once this idea gets worse, it becomes the idea that all talks from politicians and government officials are lies, cannot be trusted to brainwash us. And as this gets worse, it becomes the idea that mainstream media cannot be trusted. It's all fake news. So we see this chart is reflects Americans' trust in mass media by political party. And we see here over the past 20 years, originally Democrats and Republicans actually held similar attitudes toward mainstream media. Right now we see a clear difference, that is, Democrats now still trust the mainstream media a lot, especially after 2016. Their trust actually grow more. And this is very interesting. However, in contrast, Republicans start to be skeptical, believing that the mainstream media, the mass media, cannot be trusted. You're fake news. You're rigged. You're controlled by capitalists, by interest groups. The ideas you've been pushing and the news you've been reporting are all filtered. You're biased. You only report things you want to report and not want to let our voices heard. And you can see here, Republicans' trust in mainstream media keep going down. So we say that on the surface, US is very powerful, capable of mobilizing the whole world with many allies, also of course many free riders and troublemakers. But there's a problem. Internally, the US is now schizophrenic. It's fragmented. Now, this chart, we see the distribution of Americans by party affiliations. This is to say that Americans were asked by opinion polls if they are identify themselves with Republicans or Democrats. Blue represents Democrats and red represents Republicans. And we see back in 1994, there were large areas of overlap. The two parties actually agreed on a lot of things back then. But by 2004, we can already see a division emerge. By 2014, we see that the two shapes are moving towards each end. And this is what it looks like in 2017. We haven't seen the latest update, but I believe that it will only get worse. We have other relevant data to reflect this. Let's make a brief summary of this part. The deep divisions within American society and the populist movement was a product of its internal wealth inequality, and we're facing a United States that is schizophrenic. It's fragmented. Right now, we talk about U.S. this and that, U.S.-China relations this and that, and which side should China take in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, which are the issues that we all are very interested in. In this, I want to bring one thing to your attention, that is, who is America? There's no such thing as a unified entity called America. If you shout out, "Yo, America," you might hear several voices saying, "Here." And different voices, they all believe the others are spies from the enemies. It's very interesting. A schizophrenic America. And this division not only show between the two parties, but also exists between the elites within each party and the people. We already show from our charts the division between the two parties. Within Democratic Party, the elites represent wealthy capitalists, say the banks and financial institutions on Wall Street and the tech companies on the West Coast. For example, prominent figures like Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and the president in office, Biden, they all represent capitalists. Within Democratic Party, there are also politicians who represent the ordinary Americans and the people of color. They are the so-called four golden flowers, like Elizabeth Warren and, say, Sanders. We call these politicians the far left on the political spectrum. They kind of propose ideas that are socialist. They start to denounce US capitalism. Note here, all the rest factions all support capitalism, be it Democratic elites or Republican elites or other factions like the ultra MAGA within Republicans. They all support capitalism, except for the far left within the Democratic Party, who have started to denounce capitalism. This is a very interesting faction. On the Republican side, for example, the establishment represent the interests of the wealthy capitalists, say Chinese daughter and the oil industries whose interests are represented by the Bush family. But now there emerged the MAGA group led by Donald Trump. They are taking the right further to the far right. They are also skeptical, believing all capitalists, especially the financial capitalists, are evil. And this group is believed to be racist and fundamentalists, which is to say they hold strict religious beliefs. And these four factions, they all believe the rest are deranged. Only they themselves are clear headed. So, in some sense, we're facing now at least four Americas. So, back to the Russia Ukraine conflict, we need to note that the United States that we're seeing now is controlled by the democratic establishment, using Ukraine to consume Russia's strength. But after the midterm elections, if Republicans once again take the majority of Congress, then its attitude towards Russia will change. Moreover, after the general elections in 2024, if the MAGA faction wins the election, then it will become very interesting. So when we weigh up the situation, our policy alternatives, and the timing, this is something that we must take into account. There is no such thing as a unified entity called the United States.